Unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Please be seated. Manningham City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land we now know as Manningham. We pay our respects to Wurundjeri elders past and present and value the ongoing contribution to the cultural heritage of Manningham. Manningham Council would also like to acknowledge the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse cultures and backgrounds. I welcome all members of the public here tonight to this special council meeting. Questions received prior to the commencement of the meeting may be asked. If we do have the information at hand to provide a meaningful response, the question may be taken. If we do not have the information at hand to provide a meaningful response, the questions may be taken on notice and a response provided in writing. I would also stress that I will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to Council through the normal channels. Item number 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. An apology has been received for Councillor Andrew Conlon. Item number 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. There has been no prior notifications of any conflict of interest. The next item is public questions. Are there any questions from the public? Yes.
Yes, sir, too.
So, Joanne Hartsius? I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. No, that's correct. Oh, thank you. Okay. So if you...
So we represent the landowner to the south at 18 Clay Drive. We're an original objector. Quite quickly I'll say that... Sorry. Oh, okay.
Sure.
Is it on?
So you have 2 minutes to introduce and ask your question.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'm
you've
Joanne
got-
Hartsis. I'm the representative on behalf of the landowner at 18 Clay Drive, which is the property to the south of the proposed development site. Quickly, as an original objector, we weren't notified of this meeting until we found it from a third party. Regardless, I'm here today to represent their wishes. Whilst the vendor plans have proceeded to alter and modify some of the concerns that we had along the southern elevation and that interface between a 5-storey built form and what is essentially a 2-storey residential building, we don't think that those changes have proceeded far enough, in that there is still a 5-storey building mass less than 5 metres away from our client's property. There should be, in retrospect, what council should have done is should have maybe had a site visit out there, which I don't know that they have because I haven't been able to get in contact with the council officer who was dealing with the application, to actually see what the topography is and how close a client's building is to the common boundary. What we would like to see is for the top 2 floors, which is noted on plan as 2nd floor and 3rd floor, those southern apartments removed entirely, so there is a significant graduation 3rd storey above. Essentially, 3 storeys equal to the height of our client's property, with any additional floors above significantly set back from the common boundary. At the moment, the top floors waver between 4.8 and 5.6 metres. That's still causing overshadowing issue. One of the top floor balconies facing south proposes a balcony of a height with a balustrade of 1.5 metres. There's no dimension on the depth of that balustrade, so there is still potential overlooking. So whilst our client is proceeding to a VCAT hearing in 2 weeks' time, we would like to make it very clear that those issues are going to be thought in relation to what we've just discussed. Thank you. That's my 2 questions in hand. One is the interface issue, and the second is how has council dealt with the overshadowing. So does the interface changes, are they strong enough and made to the optimum degree to mitigate those amenity impacts, primarily being overshadowing?
Thank you. I'll direct that question to the Director of City Planning and Community, Mr. Corombos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. Well, the first question is, have we considered that southern interface? As outlined in the report, the council officers have considered that. There's been a significant improvement to the design from what was originally proposed and recommended for refusal and approved by council. And in terms of overshadowing, again, that has been considered. So as you'd be aware, we have to consider overshadowing and the other planning requirements in the context of the plan scheme requirements. So that has been done as part of this assessment.
Thank you.
And the next questioner is Vince Giuliano.
Hi. I'm a little bit nervous, so I've never done this before, so just bear with me. I'll have 2 minutes. So, yeah, I'm Vince Giuliano. We're the owners of 20 Clay Drive, and we've owned the property there for over 40 years. That might not mean much, but to us it means a lot. And I guess all I've heard since we found out about this building that's going to take place is building approvals, permits, VCAT, building specifications, etc. That's all we've heard. And we're an objector, just like many other residents within Clay Drive as well. So my question is it's really simple. I mean, if the residents are against this particular building approval, why is council going to approve it?
Thank you, Mr. Giuliano. I'll direct that question again to Niall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Giuliano, for your question. Officers are obliged to make recommendations to council based on the provisions of the planning scheme, subject to the changes that have been made consequently in relation to the discussions in VCAT. Officers believe, subject to the items listed in the report, that significant changes have been made and are worthy of support against the recommendation of support to council tonight.
So my response to that is that we tabled our objections clearly here and sometime in August. And once again, we spoke about overlooking privacy, environmental impacts, the development, whether it actually suits Clay Drive. So I know you guys are talking about all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, you know, it's us, the residents. We're the ones that are impacted here. You know, we've got like 22 apartments that are actually going up, noise levels, you know, turnover of tenants, residencies, building works that are going to take place. All this sort of stuff is going to impact all of us. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. All right. Right, we'll now move to item number 4 in the agenda, the planning permit applications, and item 4.1, application for review P2044 of 2018 of planning application PL17/027801 of 14 and 16 Clay Drive, Doncaster. Amended plans for VCAT. Do I have a mover? Councillor McLeish.
Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zafiropoulos. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as is often the case when we're talking about applications in the Doncaster Hill precinct, there are challenges with the intensity of development in this particular location. The reality is that our planning scheme has set out the scale and intensity of development in the Doncaster Hill precinct for many years. And the properties in this precinct have changed hands on that basis. And when we originally considered this particular application, it was rejected by council on the basis that it did not, in our view, on the recommendation of the officers, comply with the planning scheme. And I know there were quite a number of us that felt that the proposal as it then stood was not a reflection of what we expected on the planning scheme. Our planning scheme calls for adequate transitions between these zones, but there is a reality that in the end, intensification has to happen. That's the nature of planning. We are required by the state government to have a planning scheme that provides for population growth. That population growth has to happen within the city boundaries, and we have to have a planning scheme that provides for that increased intensity. Our planning scheme has it very carefully laid out. It has precincts like the Doncaster Hill precinct. It's an activity centre. All of our activity centres have provision around them for the building of apartments for more intensive development. That is a reality of the scheme. Sections of this have been in place for over a decade. Other parts have been in place for 6 or 7 years. But that's the reality. And we are not in a position as a council to simply take our planning scheme, put it aside and ignore what it says is permissible. We can't say to any one of the property owners who sit in this room, you're not allowed to develop your property in accordance with the planning scheme. We can't do it to the residents who are objecting, and we can't do it to the owner of this particular property. We have to give people their right to develop the property in the way the planning scheme says. And what we see in this revised proposal before us is generally in accordance with the planning scheme. We see upper stories in this building being pushed back a couple of metres further back from the existing residential interface. That will prevent overshadowing from those floors onto those properties. It will not stop all the overshadowing from this building into all properties. That's not the way this works. But it does now comply with the planning scheme and with the overshadowing requirements. There are a whole host of other changes here where there have been increased setbacks, where the building has been pushed further towards number 12 Clay Drive, I believe. And that's because at 12 Clay Drive, council is, in the next 18 months, I believe, Mr Harrison, is that right? The next 18 months to 2 years, we'll be extending Hepburn Drive through those properties, and that's why this development has been pushed north, because it's going to be facing a street along that boundary. We will also be demolishing some houses in Hepburn Avenue, Hepburn Drive, to create playground, more public open space. Basically, we are in a position as a council where we have a proposal before us which complies generally with the planning scheme. And it is our responsibility as a council to make a decision whether we consider that proposal complies with the scheme and whether we should support it. Now that the plans have been reasonably substantially altered. There's quite a number of redesigns here, deletion of terraces, deletion of apartments, increases of setbacks, a whole host of changes, which in my view, I agree with the offer recommendation that we should be now supporting this revised proposition so that VCAT is able to understand the view of council on the amended plans. And I ask my fellow councillors to support the proposition.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yes. It is, I feel, quite known, Mayor and councillors, that the position I've taken in relation to developments, particularly Kununurra, has been extremely cautious about some of the expressions from residents that they dislike overdevelopment. However, one of the reasons that this is the case is the fact that I don't feel we've done enough to enable our residents to understand the constraints this council is under, having got a planning scheme that we, by law, need to comply. This case, when it came to this council, I was, I think, the mover or seconder to reject. Having seen, though, the willingness of the developers to go out of their way to make not petty changes, some of the changes that they made were quite significant, and it wasn't just one or two changes. They made a lot of changes. So, on the basis of the responses that our officers have given to the two questions, on the basis of Councillor McLeish's explanation of what we can and can't do, and the fact that this case, unless it is resolved, it will go to VICA, and the most likely outcome will be that VICA will approve it. Therefore, it would be unwise for this council to just refuse it for the sake of it, so that is why I'm supporting.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Chen.
I've heard a lot of reasons why we need to make changes to accommodate the population growth. And we have heard a lot of times that people talk about that there's nothing else we can do, but we have the planning application scheme, the planning scheme here, American planning scheme. And I also wonder, if we are in a high population growth area and designated as a high growth area, and we need proper infrastructure to protect the local amenity, to back up the proper developments, but we haven't seen it yet. That is why I said it again and again that we have to comply with the management planning scheme stringently. And I have questions for our officers, whether the compulsory requirements have been met. For example, the height and the site capacity, and I haven't seen that yet because I remember the previous application, the site coverage is 63%, away above the requirements of 60%. And the height, and I understand that is 10 meters. I'm not sure whether it has exceeded the mandatory requirements. For those reasons, also I found that in clause 839, in order to comply with the north side boundary, they have to acquire extra land in order to comply. Where does those extra land coming from? Is from council or whatever? I have this is my basic belief, and my just believe that very strongly that we can't really sell any council's land if it belongs to council, just to accommodate the development for them to achieve the proper landscaping and fencing. And this, I have at least two questions about the compulsory requirements.
Councillor Chen, if you'd like to put the questions through me, you've got two questions.
Sorry, yes.
The first question is?
The first question is just basically just about compulsory requirements. For example, the height and also the site coverage.
Okay, I'll put that question to the Director of City Planning and Community, Mr. Columbus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, in response to that question, the report has assessed the height and the other matters that Councillor Chen has raised, and it's officer's view that it complies with the requirements of the planning scheme.
And meters?
So what's your question, Ursula?
10 meters.
Is it 10 metres? Is it?
It meets the height requirements.
Does it?
10 meters.
The requirements provide discretion to go higher. So our view is that it generally complies with the objectives of the scheme, and the requirement is outlined in the scheme. In terms of the additional land to the north, if you look at the recommendation under Part 40, we've outlined two options. So the developer can either acquire land off council, which is part of the proposed road reserve, to improve the infrastructure in that area, or we're saying they can amend the plans again to totally redesigned to ensure that they meet all the planning scheme requirements within their own current lot. So it's up to the developer what they want to do. So we've given them that option. We believe that the proposal on the table, which is for them to purchase some land off council, will be ultimately a better outcome, but we've left that option open.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Chen? No. Are there any speakers for the motion? Question? Councillor Goff.
If I understand, this property is in the whatever zone, the Doncaster zone in the boundary. The properties to the south of that, they are general residential zone DDO8 or Doncaster.
You can put that question through me. Thank you, Councillor Goff. Director, City or?
Yeah, so the properties to the south are in the general residential zone in the DDL8 schedule 2.
Thank you. Councillor Goff?
Yeah, the height limit on those.
Right. I'll put that question to the Director.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I don't know off the top of my head, I'd have to check that, so.
Thank you. Take that on notice. Mr. Councillor Goff, do you have any further questions?
I just have a question about our DDO8s. It's the height limit there. The height limit of a regular home is around 9 metres, and we're talking about 10 here. 11.
I think you'll find it's 11 non-mandatory in DDO8.
In DDO8.
Main roads,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Chen, do you have another question?
In terms of my site coverage.
Questions? Yes. I'll put that question to the Director of City Planning and Community, Mr. Corundus.
Again, Madam Mayor, site coverage is a performance-based provision, so the council does have, as VCAT, has discretion to go above. So it has to be an on-balance assessment. So in this instance, we've obviously recommended in favour.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
I have
Have
probably a couple of questions, but then I'd like to speak on it.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, one of the things I'd like to know is we've been having this discussion for a long time over this, and I've been to a lot of objectors meetings and everything else, and we were told that it was, as it was, to be refused, and it went, the applicant took it to VCAT. Now we're sitting here at the table after many discussions trying to put something to VCAT that will possibly be approved and accepted by the original applicant. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. I'll put that question to the Acting Executive Director of People and Governance, who understands how VCAT works. Yes, Mr. McMaster?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you.
If you could stand, please.
Sure. The VCAT, it's correct that this application came to council initially and was refused. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to gain a change of position by council on the basis of the officer's assessment of this amended proposal, so that when officers go to VCAT in relation to this amended application, they can put forward a position of approval for this development application.
Thank you. Do you have another question,
Yes.
Councillor Haynes?
So basically, the purpose for me to be here tonight is because of we need a position of council to go to VCAT, and this position is somewhat different than the previous one that was refused, and therefore the officers have put one together that they are hoping that can get approved by this council, so that way it can go to VCAT and council can have a position instead of no position at all. So is that the correct submission there?
Is that your question?
So yes, so is that the right submission of the reasons
If you could
why
put
we
the
need
question
that?
through me, I'd be most grateful. Is that your question, Councillor Haynes?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah. Mr. McMaster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. That's correct, Councillor Haynes. Presently, the matter is scheduled for hearing and council's position is for refusal. The officers will obviously assess the application, determine that the change is warranted reversal of that position, and then wish to take that revised position to VCAT during the hearing.
Thank you. So thank you. That I know that the meetings that we've been having are to bring us to this position, and that's why I'm here tonight. So, and for that reason, and for the many discussions that have been had, I stand to support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Are there any other speakers?
Just another question.
You have a question? Yes, Councillor Gowley.
If you could just clarify for me, more on what Councillor Haynes was described. If the presentation that's here before us tonight, if we as a council approve this is the one that our officers will be going and submitting to the as a presentation for approval. Yes?
Yes, that actually is correct.
And if it gets rejected by us tonight, then it's the original plan that goes to VCAT?
I will put that
Which is
question.
one that we've already rejected?
I'll put that question to the Director of City Planning and Community,
Which one was
Mr.
it?
Columbus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, VCAT will now consider the amended plans.
If it's approved by council tonight.
No, even if it's not approved.
Okay.
So it's whether we go to, the council goes to VCAT with a position of supporting the amended plans or continuing to oppose the plans. Yeah, even in their amended state. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Right, any other speakers? You can have a question. Yes, Councillor Chen. Yep. The rules permitted, so ask the question. Yeah.
My question through you. If we oppose the recommendation today, so the original application is that they will go to, this is our council's position, but we still have the chance, even though the VCAT will look at the amended application, but we will still have room to negotiate more favorable outcomes. Am I correct? But if we support the application, that means our hands will be tied. Am I correct? Thank you.
I'll put that question to Mr. Master because it's about tactics that, well, not the way this VCAT works and legal proceedings. So, Mr. McMaster, if you could answer that question.
Just through you. The revised report sets out a set of conditions which the officers have drafted on the basis of the development being approved by VCAT. If council approves tonight the reversal of its previous refusal decision, the officers will attend VCAT and will support the developer's application for a development permit to be issued and will defend the conditions that they put forward, assuming it's resolved and agreed to by council.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll speak in favour of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Goff.
Madam Mayor, look, I'd like to speak in favour of this motion in that I think we're in a position where what is going to go to VCAT is something totally different or has been amended greatly from what we made a decision on. And I think that we are asked for what is our position on a new model. The old one isn't going up to start with. So if we are in a situation of going to a VCAT, yes, we're against it, we're looking at this one, but the real one is this one. And so we're going to be asked, the officers are in a situation at that stage. And I don't think you can object, which you can object to this, if you're not considering this one here. So, Madam Mayor, I think it's important that we do need to make a decision on whether we support it or not. This is the one that's going to go up, and that decision whether we do support the amended plan or not the amended plan, I suppose, is the reasons for not supporting it are going to be contrary to what an officer's report is. And an officer's report is the one that is, I suppose, will be used at the hearing and will be there with the report. So I believe that we should pass it.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I'll now put the motion. No? Oh, yes. Would the mover like to close?
Madam Mayor, as I said earlier, these things are convoluted. In the end, Plans have been substituted at VCAT. The new plans are what will be considered by VCAT. That has already been determined. The officers have written a new report looking at the new plans. That's how the process works. They're a little hamstrung because we've got a refusal on the old plans. So we have a new report from the officers, and the new report looking at the new plans has recommended approval. I've looked at the revised plans, I've looked at the report, I've seen the plan improvements, and I support the proposition that's been put before us. I'll also make the observation that the properties in this area are bought and sold on the development value, the development potential. This particular owner is attempting to realise that development potential. The neighbouring properties who are here objecting, they also have development potential in their properties. The property value they have has nothing, in my view, to do with their home. Nothing. It's a DD08 property, main road sub-precinct, I believe. It has 11 metres height limit on it. If it's joined to the property next door, that building will be allowed to have apartments put on it. It is a multi-million-dollar property next door because of the changes that were put through in the planning scheme 6 years ago. The current residents enjoy that property value because of the intensity of development that's allowed on their property as it is on the property next door. The two properties have different zoning. The intensity is different, noticeably different, but the property values reflect that. And the challenge we have as a council is we have to allow owners to develop their land within the constraints of the planning scheme. What we have before us here is a recommendation that I believe falls within the their planning scheme. The officers believe it, and I suggest we support that proposition and take it to council. I wouldn't in good conscience take the objectors here tonight and say they can't develop their property and put up units or townhouses or an apartment building on their property if they so chose to, or indeed to sell it for its multi-million-dollar value today, courtesy of the zoning Manningham put on that property because of its proximity to the activity centre. I ask you to support the proposition, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. As that is the last agenda item, I will now close the meeting.